Like they might be physically in front of it, but if they're turning their brain off, then they're kind of not watching it and they're not going to get that information to stick. So I think it's a good place to right off the bat, especially if you're talking about something like onboarding, right? It's their very first day. You can really inject your culture, your company culture into it and show kind of who you are. Like you can put that in the video and make it more engaging. And I think that that's only beneficial.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Unlocked, a podcast about growing your business through the power of video. I'm Dan West, owner and creative director at Blue Key Media, and today I'm joined again by my fellow team member, Tory Thompson.
Hello.
And we're continuing our 5-part series on the 5 videos that every industrial manufacturing should be making.
Yes.
And Tory, it's the final episode.
It is.
What is it?
We are talking about internal videos, the types of videos that you might make for onboarding or for HR purposes, safety and quality, stuff to that nature, stuff that's going to stay within the company, but is still, equally as important.
Yeah. It's not necessarily the super exciting work that you might think of when you are thinking of external video, but it still can actually be exciting and fun video to create and use. And hopefully during our conversation, we can talk through some tips for making content that isn't boring, that doesn't feel like another boring, cheesy internal video. Yeah. So let's dive into it. Maybe we just start off with brainstorming what are the different types of internal videos, or
Sure.
Getting some ideas flowing for those that might be creating internal content. What might that look like?
I think for a lot of companies, like I listed earlier, it's the obvious ones are going to be things like safety and quality, things like onboarding and welcome videos. Maybe something on someone's first day, you give them a little history lesson of the company. Stuff like that is a little bit basic. But I think there's some steps you can take to go even further in that, which would be like engaging your employees on like a quarterly basis by maybe doing like an update video with your CEO or some of the executives at the company.
Another idea that companies can implement is podcasts, like what we're recording right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great way for executive leadership to talk on a regular basis about specific initiatives that are happening in the company, so that it feels much more flat and more larger organizations or organizations with more hierarchy.
Yeah.
It just allows more access to executives that people might not be able to interact with on a regular basis.
Yeah, because even if the company is structured in a way that they want everyone to be able to talk to the executives and the CEO and stuff, sometimes the size, the distance of the company makes that logistically impossible.
Yeah.
So whether it's quarterly, monthly, weekly, however it is, doing a podcast where you get a group of people together and talk about what's going on in the company and something that you can just put out there that people can or listen to if they want.
Yeah.
I think that can go a long way, and it's also pretty inexpensive. It's not like you have to hire some expensive crew to come in and you're paying thousands of dollars a week to do like a 30-minute podcast or something. No, like you can buy microphones for under $100 that sound great. You can plug them into your computer and do it over a Zoom call basically, or some type of conferencing software. Like you could all just do it in an office. It's cheap and it's very accessible for pretty much any company to get into.
Definitely. And the purpose of all of this internal content is to increase communication, or improve, I should say, communication across a company's organization, which hopefully, creates better culture or consistency with how people talk within the company, create more consistent standards on safety and all that stuff. It's about elevating the internal communication and engaging your employee base.
Yeah. In fact, for the safety and quality, one of the things that a client of ours did is that they were doing a bunch of videos, and we had traveled to a couple different locations across the country for them, and they had found that there was a lack of internal communication on what the standards of safety and quality were. So because they saw all of that in the footage we were capturing, they were able to go, okay, these are the pain points we need to stop, and then create a safety and quality video addressing all of those issues that they had noticed across their company, and that helps smooth it out and make it more consistent.
Yeah, and that's a good point about identifying where can video play a role in improving these processes. Looking throughout, like, where are you finding inconsistencies? Are you noticing that, maybe certain ideas around quality and safety aren't universal? Okay, maybe there's a problem happening on the onboarding process. Are there, like you said, inconsistencies in training because locations are all over the place and people are being trained in different regions, et cetera? We'll create a standardized training video.
Yeah.
Not only is it going to standardize your practices and create better, consistent quality, but you save time. Like, that's another reason why that same company, we created an onboarding video. It ended up being about 15 minutes. It talked about some of the history, the core values of the company, and was a great just introduction to what is that company. So then that way their HR person doesn't have to try and reinvent the wheel every time.
Right.
And they're having like probably weekly conversations with new employees. Turnover is happening all the time.
Well, not only turnover happening, but that particular company is on like this exponential growth right now. So they're bringing on so many employees that it would cost them so much money to have someone spend their entire day doing the onboarding when they could spend some money on a video, and then all of that information that was going to take however long is condensed into a 15-minute easy to watch video.
And let's talk a little bit about like do's and don'ts of maybe we'll go some of the more traditional options right now in terms of like some onboarding or safety quality, culture videos. I mean, a lot of the standard practices is there's a PowerPoint and they walk through it, and maybe they've done some video standardization, but it's someone who's recorded themselves going through a PowerPoint and like on their computer, right?
Yeah.
Which isn't very engaging.
No.
And if you're going to create content, you want to make sure that the viewer is watching all the way through. So,
and I think leapfrogging off that, it's also that some companies have videos that, maybe their processes haven't changed all that much. So the video they made was in like 2003, and it looks like it, like the graphics look that way, the footage looks that way, and they might be thinking like, well, it still works, it's still the same information, but you want, when it's someone's first day coming in, you want them to feel like this is a company that stays with the times and that is, fresh and clean and modern and all of these things that allow them to see a future with the company rather than like, oh, great, I'm going to be stuck always in the past, like refusing to move forward. So
some of the do's and don'ts don't have outdated feeling content. Like, if you're creating a video for onboarding, don't just have it be a PowerPoint presentation. Right. Think outside the box. Maybe you're engaging employees to go through like this. You write a script, employees go through what you might have just a single person walk through. And then you bring in some visuals around the company. Like, that is 100 times better than just a PowerPoint. You're bringing things to life.
Yeah.
Any other tips or do's and don'ts that you've kind of learned as we've gone through some projects?
Yeah, I think it was extremely helpful. Like, I've had jobs in the past where I've had to do some safety training stuff, and I remember going through and it was literally just like I was just reading stuff. They gave me like a packet, and like that's hard to follow. So if companies can do a video where they're visually showing where the mistakes happen, where these like points of failure can occur, that's going to be much more helpful, especially for people like me who are visual learners. So like seeing it happen, it's a little more tactile and it's a little less sort of ambiguous on what they mean. It's like, oh, I saw what happened, and I saw that big spill happen, and now I know that could happen. You know? So it's more engaging to visually show, especially with something as important as safety in manufacturing and industrial companies, because they're dealing with stuff that can be, potentially very dangerous or cause a lot of damage.
So another thing to consider as well is to make sure that length is appropriate too, because it can be easy. Like, sometimes training is just slow
Yeah.
and boring, like even without video, right?
Yeah.
If you're just sitting through training for a few hours, like that's a long time
Yeah.
and a lot of information. So you don't want to make your videos just like someone's giving a presentation. Like,
No.
let's keep it short, let's keep it engaging, because like you were saying, video is a very visual medium, and the saying of a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So like when you're thinking about video, the images you're showing speak just as much as the words that they're hearing.
Yeah.
And so you can communicate a lot more in a shorter amount of time, because we're seeing, maybe images of employees living out the things that are being spoken about, and you're getting some nuances. So don't create 30-minute videos. Still keep them digestible.
Yeah.
Keep them short, or as short as you can while keeping it engaging.
Yeah. I think with internal stuff, you do have a little bit more play with the length, because it is going to be a captive audience. Like, you pay them, so they have to sit there and watch the video.
Yeah, right.
But I think that it's only going to be more beneficial and stick with an employee longer if it's engaging. And also, instead of making it 30 minutes, like you said, or making it 20 minutes or whatever, just break it up into 10-minute chunks or 8-minute chunks, 5-minute chunks, whatever it is. And then maybe at the beginning of the day, they watch orientation. Maybe halfway through the day, they watch safety and quality. You can kind of space it out, and it allows them to sort of process the information a little bit better. So with video, I think it gives you a little bit more play with how and when you want to deliver the information.
Definitely. So we've talked a lot about different ideas of content you can create, and really the sky's the limit.
Yeah. These are just some of the options, but whatever your company is, it could, your culture could dictate the type of content that makes sense for you to produce for internal use. So, sky's the limit.
Yeah, and I guess as we come to a conclusion with our conversation, I think one of the key points we want to hone in on is be creative with the training videos or internal videos that you're creating. And think, how can you leverage the power of video and the medium that it is to get better results than an in-person training or PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's about engagement and keeping them involved in the content. And like you had mentioned earlier, making sure that they don't tune out or they don't forget it. Because that's probably the biggest shortcoming in the onboarding process or training process is retention.
Yeah.
And so
like they might be physically in front of it, but if they're turning their brain off, then they're kind of not watching it, and they're not going to get that information to stick. So I think it's a good place to right off the bat, especially if you're talking about something like onboarding, right? It's their very first day. You can really inject your culture, your company culture into it and show kind of who you are. Like you can put that in the video and make it more engaging. And I think that that's only beneficial.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, one funny story I just thought of that I saw a few years back. I think it was KPMG, the big accounting firm. It was one of the big four accounting firms. And they created a series of onboarding videos where it was full on musicals, where like they had like 20 people involved, and it was talking about the dress code. So they were in some sort of like shop, or they were in a store that had suits and professional attire, and they had like 20 people do a full-on musical with choreography and dancing. Like
nice.
Think like La La Land, but for an accounting firm.
Yeah, just a bunch of accountants
for onboarding.
That's genius.
And it was like a 5-part video talking about like the core things that I think every employee like needs to know.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you they probably spent a few $100,000 on this series. And I mean, that's a lot of money to do, but like, why would you go down the route of musical and choreographed dance for like something talking about dress code? Well, because you want to keep it super engaging and you don't want them to tune out. And if you're hiring thousands of employees over the course of a few years, maybe $100,000 investment into really good training videos that stick translates to like $10 an employee.
Yeah.
So I just remembered that idea.
Well, it just shows how creative you can be with it. And it's like, what a great way to go like,
And it's like the least creative industry.
Yeah,
Accounting.
it's like accounting. It has to be very by the book, just by definition. And the fact that they went that extra mile to do that.
Yeah.
That just shows it shows what kind of company they are and what kind of talent they want to bring in.
Yeah, exactly. So, and any company can take that. Industrial manufacturing companies, they can run with that and get creative and fun with it.
Yeah.
So we hope that is encourages you to get creative and think outside the box with your content.
Yeah.
But that wraps up our 5-part series.
That's it.
Thanks for joining me on this journey. And thank you, audience, for following along if you've stuck through the 5 episodes. We hope you gained value from it and got some new ideas as you're creating your own content. If you have any follow-up questions for us, feel free to reach out at hello@bluekeymedia.com, or you can follow us, message us on social media at Blue Key Media. But otherwise, that's it for the series, and you'll hear from us soon as we bring on more guests to talk about video. So we'll see you next time.